Good afternoon. Awesome to see you already here. So I hope my sound is okay. It should be, but please let me know in the chat if you can hear me.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I can hear you.
Thanks, Hank. It's always a bit awkward to ask people to let me know if you can't hear me, so I thought let's turn it around. Cool, 2 more minutes. So I'll 1.5 even. Let's start sharing my screen. And you should be able to see my screen as well with the first page of the presentation.
Yes. Yeah, we can see. Thank you.
Awesome. Then I'll wait until the time on the website says we can get started, which is in 32 seconds. So if you still need to get a drink or take a bathroom break or whatever, then be real quick. Because in 24 seconds now, we're going to get started. And it should be recording. Let me double check that. So I don't want someone to be really angry at me later. Yeah, it is. 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Welcome again. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me in this first webinar of our AI Learning Week. AI strategy for leaders, ethics, governance, and business success. A whole lot of topics for just 1 hour, but I'll give you the main gist of it. So yeah, like I said, 1 hour. So that's how long you'll be stuck with me, unless you decide to leave early, but that will be, well, really direct feedback. I will open the chat window in the meantime. So if you have any questions, I will try to have a look at the chat window once in a while to see if there are questions that I can address in the meantime. Please know that since this is a webinar format, it's a bit less interactive that you might be used to if you ever did a training with me previously. If you never did a training with me, well, then please know that normally my trainings are a bit more interactive, especially the in-person ones. But a webinar format does not really allow for successful interactivity from my, well, point of view. You can discuss about it. That's something off topic, so I'm not going to dive more into there. Just know that, yeah, it will be a bit more me sending information, but I have a few questions in between for you to also actually do some thinking and get that gray mass to work. So let's dive right in. So again, welcome, third time. Well, 3 times a charm, I guess, is English saying. I'm not sure, it's a bit rusty there. But anyway, I'm Steven. I'm a data and AI strategist, analytics translator, and a trainer. It's a whole mouthful, and also my weeks are pretty full with all those different roles. But at Xebia, or Xebia Data, the data part of our company, I do, I would say, almost anything that doesn't involve coding. So I know about AI, I know what it can do, I know what it often can't do. I know about data governance, about data modeling. More and more ethics is becoming important, especially in Europe and especially in the Netherlands. And what I like most is, well, sharing and telling others about what it is that we encounter in practice and how it can help you. So all our trainings are, well, we try to design the trainings in such a way that we learn today, apply tomorrow, or in that case, you learn today and apply tomorrow. So I might be referring to some frameworks in this webinar as well. Please just check them out on our website. You can just find them there. There are blog posts about them, such as the value chain of data science. It will pop up at some point. You can find a blog post about it. you can also look for other webinars about specifically that topic and download the framework and get going. So we really try to make it hands-on, not the theoretical exercise. You have universities for that. So that's me. I live in Nune, next to Eindhoven in the Netherlands, with our almost 9-month-old son. So yeah, the nights are still a bit sleep deprived, but enjoying a lot. So, but let me get back to the topic. So what did I prepare for you today? So to be fair with you, I took bits and pieces from different trainings, and I paid a bit of attention to the outlining, because this topic is, well, a bit scattered around, or it appears in many of our different trainings, and I try to get the best in this one and retain it in 1 hour. I mean, we can spend days discussing building AI solutions or implementing AI solutions that you buy off the shelf. Fair enough, still works. And what considerations you all have to I'll take a look at. And again, I try to make it really hands-on and applicable. So I'm actually going to give you a bunch of checklists regarding trustworthy AI that, well, if you can check them all, I would say you're doing a good job. If you can check none of them, well, you might want to have a discussion with your teams who are either building or buying the solutions that you are considering. So I first want to discuss the AI solution framework, which is one of our cornerstone frameworks in building AI solutions, but can as well be applied to like buying AI solutions. You always have a buy build discussion or choice. So it can be applied to both. In which, like I said, I mostly pay attention to trust, ethics, responsibility, fairness, those type of topics, and how they fit in that solution framework. And then secondly, I like to take a bit of a step back and think about, discuss with you, or well, present to you, what does it mean to be successful? What do I need to consider as a leader to be successful with AI solutions, or I would almost say data in general? So that's what I have in store for today, and that's what we're going to spend the next 55 minutes on. So, and like I said, I also like to have your gray mass at work a bit. So I'm just going to have a very first question on the screen, just for 30 seconds, for you to think about, okay, webinar about AI Learning Week. Okay, cool, but yeah, I mean, when is data or AI applicable for
No,
businesses
estoy
anyway?
aprendiendo, siempre
So,
aprendiendo.
well, I'm going to find the mute button on Zoom to
¿Qué
mute you
más?
all. I invite you to type a few of your thoughts in the chat when data and or AI is applicable for your business.
Como la matica.
And yeah, Diana, my Spanish is a bit rusty, so I muted you. Sorry for that. Spanish, interesting with the power outage in Spain. Well, maybe it's not Spain, maybe it's a different part of the world. So don't be hesitant to drop your thoughts in the chat. When is data and AI applicable for businesses? When time consuming tasks are impacting productivity, financial growth. Yeah, okay. So I would say manual labor that impacts your productivity and or growth. Always, well, Mark, I would say often, but always, let's agree to disagree there. I mean, I'm really glad my baker focuses on breaking bread and not using AI applications to tune his oven or so. When you can use it, it's ethical. Yeah, well, definitely, Hank. So when it's ethical, forecasting, yeah, forecasting is a big thing. I mean, thanks, Abdul. It's indeed, I'm going to call you Abdul just for my pronunciation skills. Forecasting indeed, actually, well, you think of AI or predictive machines, it's all about forecasting and making those forecasts applicable. Can help better decisions when data analyzed correctly. Yeah, well, thanks indeed, Jody. Correctly analyzing data, that's kind of a thing, isn't it? Things can be digitalized, yeah, definitely, Jeremy. So it's hard to use AI on a shovel. Learning from digital breadcrumbs of your own operations and markets around you. Well, yeah. So maybe to be inspired about tasks, activities, to make the task more easy. Yeah, again, easing stuff. Reach out your business goals faster by using AI. Well, hopefully. Recommendation engines. Yeah, well, especially in online marketing domain or so. Or Amazon recommenders, that type of stuff. Netflix recommenders for content, you name it. To be profitable, hopefully, yeah. Just know that a lot of AI also costs a lot of money. So, but the business case is definitely something to ask for as a leader. Not explicitly in this training though, because I focus on the ethics part. But it is task automated. Thanks. Fraud detection, definitely. Create efficiency. Well, a lot of great ideas. So I would say keep them coming. And I will try in the meantime to summarize them on the fly. Just kidding, I prepared this, of course. So I would say when there's business value potential, unless maybe you are a government agency or whatsoever who doesn't need to make a living or profit. But in general, there needs to be some value potential in there, as also mentioned, for example, by NGOPAL, to be profitable. And when I zoom out, I think, okay, so you have repetitive tasks that maybe can be automated. So think of a finance team that does invoice processing. Well, that's stuff that can be automated with computer vision and then some NLP on top or so to actually read that invoice and process it automatically. I had to do that as a treasurer myself in the past. It's tedious work. Maybe that's why it's on the slide. Cognitive insights. So the breadcrumbs of data of your company, your markets, operations. So maybe identify new insights based on those breadcrumbs that were mentioned earlier in the chat. Fraud detection was mentioned in the chat as well. Next best action or recommenders. And third one, which actually I would say came about in the last couple of years, which is cognitive engagement. So think of, I hope we all know about ChatGPT, but with the well, I'd say continuous development efforts in large language models, in generative AI, we can actually now at this point create decent support agents using AI, where in the past, the rule-based ones might not always have been so customer friendly, let's put it that way. The query was, give me the number of the sales rep or the customer support agent. Yeah, well, nowadays, actually, some generative applications can handle a lot of that engagement as well. So, but when it's applicable, something that I didn't see too much, a few people said, well, we need data, obviously need data. So I need sufficient data to base any insights or predictions on, obviously. Breadcrumbs maybe, but maybe some loaves of bread. And you want to use data that lies within the ethical regulatory guidelines. And to be completely honest with you, this is just 3 slides that I copy-pasted from another training that I facilitate for a group of young consultants at a Big 4 company. And they come up with that first part. They come up with the potential use cases, just like you did. I'm really glad that I think it was Henk in the chat who said it needs to be, when you can use it ethically. Hank said so. So yes, a lot of possibilities, but also think about, okay, when, how, where, and does it make sense? Or don't we cross the creepy line, for example? Do we want to build a CV selector using AI? Well, maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's repetitive work looking through all those CVs. But if you want to admit or reject a person based on an AI application scanning CVs, you might want to consider doing that twice and at least pay a lot of attention to your model and how it evaluates the CVs. What are the features that are put in there to assess whether someone should be proceeded to the next round or not? For example, gender should not be part of the feature set, unless maybe in some really rare job applications. But just giving data to an AI model, random forest or so, it doesn't differentiate. It doesn't, think about stuff like that itself. So that's where human people come into play, especially leaders should, I think, drive that process. Because a data scientist aims to build the best model ever. Leader, I would say, has a responsibility to also ensure that it lies within the ethical boundaries of the organization. And of course, the regulatory guidelines, that's why you have a privacy officer, for example, and a risk officer and those type of people. But then how? And that's where the first thing comes into play. Well, the first topic I like to discuss, AI solution framework. How can you actually ensure building trustworthy ethical AI solutions? Or what are some key questions that you can ask? Actually, the questions is what I'm going to give you today at different stages of the model. So, what's your process to develop AI solutions? How do you do that, or don't you do that at all, maybe? Again, feel free to use the chat. I'll give you another, say, 30 seconds or so. So, yep, it's quick typing, but we only have an hour. So I'll see them coming in. And if you don't have a process to develop AI solutions, or you don't develop at all, also fine to drop it in the chat, because it also gives me a bit of a feel for how new or not new this is going to be. Thanks for the awesome drawing on my slides. I'm really amazed by the capabilities of Zoom. I never use Zoom, but I see Navneet is really making a piece of art. Appreciate it. A bit like my training analytics translation. Yeah, Willem, but it's appended. So, but I'm glad that you recognize this. Data collection, preparation, model development, evaluate, repeat. Thanks, Ngopal. I really don't know how to pronounce your name, but well, Ngopal. Jeremy, set a goal, data pre-processing, data modeling, prediction, inference, evaluation of the model. Cool. I like to start a bit earlier though, Jen. So people. So those steps are definitely going to be part of this framework, but let me briefly explain the framework to you. And now I have a lot of drawing in my screen, so I'm going to erase that. Like I said, I never use Zoom, so maybe you don't see it at all, I don't know. Anyway, AI solution framework, and indeed the people who did the analytics translation training with us before might recognize this framework, or I hope they do, because it's part of the training as well. So for them, it's a quick recap. For the others, it's a really brief run through. So when developing AI solutions, we consider three different phases: the ideate, experiment, industrialize phase. So I read set a goal, part of the ideation phase. Data pre-processing, modeling, predictions, inference, part of experimentation phase. Evaluation of the model, also in there. Understand the problem, yeah, definitely part of the ideation phase. Gather, explore data, clean data, choose the right model, part of experimentation phase. So a lot of the input that you provided in the chat is part of this framework here. We're in the ideation phase. We like to first, before actually building or exploring the data or building an AI solution, we want to think about, okay, what's the problem we're going to solve? So from an initial idea, which could be, for example, a super duper deep learning model, we want to, from that idea, first detail out, okay, who are going to build it for? What is the potential value inherent in there? How are we going to measure in practice what we're going to deliver? What should the end state solution do for the end users to be successful? Who is the end user anywhere? Anyhow, is it a human in the loop solution? Is it a fully automated product? What does the thing look like? So we're going to collect a whole bunch of ideas. Sorry for that. We're going to select the most promising ones, or at least the ones that we believe are most promising. And then we're going to further refine, so further detail that promising idea and really understand those questions that I just mentioned. And I would say as a leader or a senior manager, you might chip in the idea collection, Typically, the refinement will be done by a project manager, analytics translator, together with the data science team, with business stakeholders, so people from your team. And then I would say in the validated use cases where you decide to proceed with the solution or not. So as a leader, you take the go, no go decisions within this framework. So where are you going to focus? Does that detailed solution, that refined solution, do you think is promising enough to invest your money, invest your people in there? Then in the experimentation phase, that's where the data modeling is going to happen. Data exploration, cleaning, creating those first AI solutions. That's all part of the exploring proof of concept step, where we're actually going to technically prove whether the solution works or not. After which we typically have an intermediate results workshop where we're going to show to stakeholders. So the team is going to show to you as a leader, do we have sufficient trust in the data and in AI capabilities to actually predict or build something useful given the problem at hand? If yes, we're going to transform that proof of concept into an MVP, so something end users can interact with. And we're going to actually test the other hypothesis that we have, namely, does it work in practice? And does it add value? So in the experimentation phase, I would say we validate the 3 critical hypotheses that we have, which are, does it work technically? The proof of concept. Does it work in practice? The MVP, so can end users interact with it and get the insights that they need? And does it add value, so proof of value, or the pilot phase, you could say. If all is yes, we have a valuable MVP, again, as a leader, you decide to proceed or not. Are the results good enough to further invest and industrialize this beauty? Where we're going to develop and deploy, so it is a really technical step towards go live, so get the MVP to a production state solution, and then we integrate and scale it. So integrate it in the way of working, update working instructions, those type of activities, to eventually have an adopted solution that end users can actually use and interact with. So that's the solution framework in a nutshell. And I'm going to proceed with the key questions to ask from an ethics point of view, and also where, again, this webinar is a complement to the analytics translation training, for example, or complementary to. So first, the ideation phase, when I deal with the validated use case. So really text-heavy slide. Yes, I could have used animations or stuff, but I think it's good to see the entire spectrum at once. So what we see here on top is what we call the value chain of data science. So any AI solution will contain these elements, namely data being used in a predictive model, so forecasting was mentioned, to get insights. Those insights are actually being used by someone in line with business objectives, so what we call the optimization step. So turning those insights into something actionable, so someone or a system taking an action. We want to measure everything that is done, whether the system is being used, uptime, response time, but also business metrics, usage metrics, model metrics, to ultimately unlock value all the way at the right side. So this is our framework to turn data into value with all the intermediate steps. And the key questions to answer, or the team should have answered for you as a leader to take a decision, what we learned from practice so far, and maybe or probably the list is not extensive at all, but well, first of all, does it solve a problem in line with your business objectives? So also when you think of ethical solutions, well, you could wonder whether it's ethical to do something totally different to your core business. So as a hospital suddenly gonna predict propensity to buy model for some minor surgeries, not sure if that's really in line with your objective, namely making as many people healthy as possible. At least in the Netherlands, maybe it's different in different parts of the world, of course. So that's the overall scope question. Are we actually solving a problem for someone? And unfortunately, often the answer is no. So no, it's not always AI that's applicable. And is it in line with our business objectives? So if yes, then we can consider the other questions. And at this stage, I would like to move from value to measure, or value to data. So do we actually create measurable value for stakeholders and users? Can be different groups. Stakeholders can be shareholders, for example, business case. Users can be end users. So what do we provide those people? What are the success metrics? And you can think of model, users, and business metrics. And actually, how will we validate those metrics before we are going to move forward? So already think about your pilot before you're actually going to explore the data, because if you agree or you conclude that you're not going to be able to test it, you might not want to proceed at all. Then in the actions, how will we address potential risks that could arise from those actions? So of course, we want to understand what actions are going to be taken by whom, but you also want to think about, okay, and what are potential risks or adverse events resulting from those? Then for the optimization step, how will the AI solution be implemented? So is it a human in the loop versus a fully automated system? Well, in the latter case, we maybe want to have more guardrails in place compared to a human in the loop kind of application. So right now I'm building a generative AI solution with the team for a large international client. And it's a really clear human in the loop solution where key is to ground all our insights. So actually we ground our Gen AI models or LLMs. So they always provide the source information to the end user so they themselves can decide whether it's a valuable insight, whether they trust it, or whether it's, well, a hallucination, which is unfortunately what still happens. So how will it be implemented? How do we control it, or who is in control? Or how do we ensure someone is in control? So, of course, for insights, making sure that only the right people have access to the insights. So the multinational or the international client I just mentioned, only certain people based on the RBAC, so the role-based access control, have access to the model insights, and only a specific group of users can send prompts to that application. Predict, is the proposed solution technically feasible with our resources and expertise? Maybe something to consider upfront. If you still need to build an entire capability, maybe you want to onboard an external consultant who has done it before. And also with Gen AI, that's already possible these days. There are consultants who have built Gen AI applications that actually run in production, us being one of them. And data, well, obvious one, but do we have access to the necessary data? But it's also of high quality. High quality, think of unbiased data. Or if there is bias in the data, do we already have some ideas in mind how to counter that or how to account for it? Do we have certain groups in the data that are under or oversampled? Oh, this is unfortunate. Free meeting will end in 10 minutes. Well, let's see what's going to happen. If that's, well, I have a paid account, so I'm really curious what's going to happen with the Zoom meeting, but we'll see. So do we have extra data? Do we have high quality data? Unbiased? Is there under or oversampling? Can we resample the undersampled groups, for example? Do we have a feel for the data collection process? So do we know how the data is stored? Is it a manual data, manually typed by people? Is it auto-generated by sensors? Well, get a feel for that type of, well, collection process to also get a better feel for how good representation is the data of reality. And, well, overarching responsible AI, does the design meet regulatory requirements and adhere to your responsible AI principles? Bit more on those principles later, hopefully in this meeting, else I'm gonna restart the meeting and let's see. Let's hope that then works. I need 2 times 30 minutes, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen there. Okay, in the experimentation phase, so if we answered all those questions and the whole bunch of other questions that that you will find on our blog posts or in other trainings, we go to the experimentation phase, and also in the experimentation phase, there are some key considerations for you as a leader to consider. So again, I took the same list just for reference, so easy to refer. Scope, to what extent did we solve a business problem? So we now built an MVP, we tested the MVP. To what extent do we actually solve a real problem with our MVP? We should be able to actually answer that question right now. So did we prove any value in the pilot? So like I said, the experimentation phase is about validating three critical hypotheses. Does it work in practice? So technical hypothesis, does it work on historical data? Does it work in practice? MVP in pilot, and does it add any value from the pilot? So what did the success metrics tell us about the value, usage, and model performance? What was feedback from users on the usability, but also on their feel about the quality of the insights? Well, were all target audiences treated the same way? So did we indeed, if we look at our data set, if we look at the different target audiences, did all of them get well, not necessarily the same predictions? That would be awkward, because then why would we have target audiences? But at least get predictions that are reasonably explainable, that are tailored to their situation, and then not someone is over or under. Yeah, thanks, Naveed. Well, I can see your drawings. I'm not sure about the rest. Anyway, under or overrepresented or penalized for whatever reason. So I always had to think of this. I think it was a tech firm launching a credit card where two people, male, female, they shared income, shared assets. They both requested a credit card, and the male requester got a 10 times higher limit than the female requester. Well, that's something that, first of all, you want to account for while developing your solution. That should not happen. But secondly, if that happens in the pilot, it should show up. And then this is a clear indication that not all target audiences were treated the same by the solution. So, insights. Well, there's always uncertainty with our model. How is it presented to the users? How is it explained to the users that we have model uncertainty? How did the feature set ensure fair estimators? So what was used as predictors? Does it make sense to use those predictors? And what was the quality report of the data? So we now really dove into the data. We really looked at all the nitty-gritty details. Is the data fair? Is the data biased? How did we account for under or oversampling? What are the different samples for the different user groups within the data? So the data gathering process, we took a close look at that. How responsible do we believe it is for the real life application, real life situation? And then again, same questions earlier. Does the MVP now meet the regulatory requirements and adhere to our responsible principles? And I'm going to pay a bit more attention to those right now. So, what responsible AI principles could you consider before taking MVP to production? And for sake of time, I'm just going to give them to you. And well, there are different lists, there are different overviews you can consider. I tried to, I would say, give you the main gist out of a whole bunch that we came across. And when I think of responsible AI, I think of fairness, transparency, privacy, maybe also security in there, accountability, reliability, inclusiveness, ethical use, and societal impact. And you could even say environmental impact should be in there. Fair enough. I mean, this is also, like I said, a consolidation of different perspectives. But I'm going to give you a few considerations as a leader to consider before you take any solution to production, whether you developed it yourself, whether you bought it off the shelf. No pun intended with the rhyme there. Fairness. So, have you identified potential bias in your training data? Have you identified potential bias in your algorithms, in your feature set? So, maybe even team processes like the data gathering process that I mentioned earlier. So, second one, does your AI provide equitable results for all users? So, irrespective of race, gender, age, whatever you can think about, that probably should not be a predictor anyway. Maybe age for, I don't know, predicting whether someone is going to go to a retirement home anytime soon. Age might be a predictor there. And that's fair, that's fine then, right, to include it. But at least think about it. And, well, have any fairness metrics be incorporated in AI evaluation process? So, for example, like I said, bias in your data or bias in your predictors. Well, there's mathematical ways to account for bias or test for bias. Bias in your data, you can think of over-undersampling, and did we maybe evaluate the predictors on those different samples to see whether, well, for both it makes sense what the predictions say. Transparency. Are the system's objectives, capabilities, limitations clearly communicated to stakeholders and end users? So any AI system will have flaws, will have limitations, just like the Zoom meeting might have in 2.5 minutes. It's limitation. Let's see. So are those clearly communicated? Do people understand them? Can people actually say stakeholders, can they tell you about the limitations? So it's one thing to tell someone about it, but it's a different thing if they can actually present back to you what the limitations are and explain those to you or to the team. Can you explain the key decisions and output? Obviously, closely links to that fairness principle we just discussed. And is a clear documentation. So if someone, say you would have an audit, and you have an audit on your AI system, well, is it clearly documented how you took certain decisions, why you took the feature set, what the rationale is behind the system that you built. So also make sure that the process is documented, key decisions are documented. Privacy. So are you in line with privacy regulations? For example, the California one, CCPA, the Virginia one, VCDPA, or if you have Europe exposure, GDPR, if you have China exposure, PIPL. So there are, well, more and more data regulations and privacy regulations popping up. So make sure that you, adhere to those and also make your privacy officer a really clear and important stakeholder. Did you anonymize and or encrypt sensitive data? So if there is a risk of data leakage or whatever, or any misuse in general, how did you account to minimize that risk? You wouldn't be the first company where anyone can look at all the data. And do you have a robust security measures in place? So to make sure that someone doesn't get unauthorized access, no one can manipulate the data, or in case of a data breach that you minimize the exposure and also potential fine. Accountability. You have a clear governance structure, clear roles, responsibilities, and clear monitoring, auditing of the AI systems in an